Everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on that recessed paneling for the wainscoting memorial wall that we've been building. If you haven't seen the video previous to this one, go back on my channel and check that out. It's how I built the pilasters, which are the side pieces. Today we're going to be working on the center of that, which is the recessed panel, and we're going to have stiles and rails with 3 recessed panels and some trim molding in the panels. We're getting started on that today. And what I did was I took the time to get the measurements that I need and lay it out on my workbench and make the marks so I can visually see it before I start to apply it to the wood that I milled down to a 1/2 inch. It's going to be 59¼ inches in total width between those pilasters, and each individual stile and rail is 3 inches in width and it's 30 inches in length altogether. And what I need to do for the 3 panels is I took that 59¼ I divided it by 3, and I came up with 19¾ per panel. The first is 19¾ and then 39½, and then the next part will be at the end from the 59¼ We're going to work over 3 inches. That will give me 56¼ and then from my other marks that I made, I'm going to split that 3 inches down the middle, and it's going to be 1½ on each side of my center line. So we're going to start to cut up the pieces now, but I'm going to also draw that out on the pieces before I cut them so I have the layout. All right, let's get started. Now, to minimize my cuts at the miter saw, what I'm doing is cutting pieces to the same length, and then I'll rip them down. This way I don't have to set up a stop block and do as many repetitive cuts. I'm going to use a little trick here so I don't have to transfer the lines exactly the same on both pieces. Before I rip this down into 2 3-inch strips, what I'm going to do is lay out my lines on both pieces, carry it across with my T-square, and then this way when I rip it down, I already have my markings on both pieces completely equal to where I need to be. So that's every 19¾ inches. So 19¾ 39½, and then the 59¼ is the end. Now, take the T-square, strike a line across the whole piece. And now I can also, with these layout lines, come from the other side, take a measurement, 19¾ perfect, 19¾ 19¾ So everything with the math is completely on the money. Now when I rip this down into my 3-inch strips, I don't have to worry about getting it exactly perfect on both pieces. Alright guys, so here's a quick layout of it on the bench. Now, to make this a truly recessed panel, we have to do back paneling. But before we do that, we have to attach this frame and screw it together. And the way we're going to do that is simply by using pocket screws, because this is the back side and it's going to be screwed into a wall. So this is going to be completely hidden. So we won't have to worry about fasteners. So we're not going to have to use dominoes or biscuits or anything like that. No fancy joinery here. Just some quick pocket screws, a little bit of glue, and then we'll move on to making the back panel. Then we can start the molding. By the way, to make the molding, all those scrap cutoffs, I'm going to make the molding out of that since it's the same material and the same thickness and it matches the pilasters. That's what we did with those. So we're going to continue with that same theme. Okay guys, so what I've done is with my clamps, my bench dogs on my workbench, created a right angle here, 90-degree corner, and what I'm going to do is butt up the pieces into that corner the way they need to be situated, and then clamp it down and then pocket screw them together, because if you don't do this, we all know that pocket screws, they tend to want to move around a lot when you start screwing, especially into a hardwood. All right, so let's get those out of there, get a little glue on the edge. Spread that out into the end grain. And the face is flush also. All right, now we just gotta move on. So I'm keeping the gap the same on top, which is 1 inch, because that's going to house another piece of plywood. That's the upper part of the wall later on. That's going to sit in this cradle. Now when I screw these in, I'm leaving a little gap here to allow for expansion and contraction of the red oak behind it. Okay, so now that I have my panel installed on the back, and that gives me my recessed panel, which is finished, I left a little bit of overhang here with the plywood so that I can flush it up. Since I have a recess here of 1 inch to house the other plywood that's going to be for the top of the wall like a cradle, I have a leading straight edge on my red oak. This is going to be total height of 30 inches. So since I have that little 1/16 of an inch overhang with the plywood, I made sure I left the screws far enough away where I can trim it with my table saw. So I'm going to set my fence to 30 inches, because that's the total height that I need. I'm going to lock it in place, and now I'm going to flush trim it along the fence and have the blade cut off that 1/16 of an inch. And so now, without having to use a flush trim bit on the router, my sides are already flush because I left a little bit of room, clearance to get them flush. And now the bottom is completely flush on the table saw blade, and we're at a perfect 30 inches. So now we're going to do some light sanding on the top, then we're going to get started on making the moldings and installing the moldings, and then we're going to put some stain and some finish and wrap this thing up and go install it. Okay guys, so just like the moldings on the pilasters, I made them on the router table on a larger piece of wood, and now I set my rip fence to 3/4 of an inch. That's the thickness I need the moldings to be to fit inside the slots where I'm going to install them. So now we're going to rip those down, then we're going to cut them on the miter saw and install them in the panels. All right, here's a really quick shot of it here off the tripod. Now that the finish is dry, nice and smooth. 3 coats of satin and Enduro poly. Came out really nice, got a nice sheen to it. Nice tight miters, looking really good. And this is getting installed tomorrow, so if you're watching this video, it's already done. And I'm gonna show some pictures at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. All right, guys, so this project's all wrapped up. 3 coats of the satin polyurethane on there, and it's all finished. It was just a light sanding at the end after the 3rd coat, the 2000 grit sandpaper to give it that real fine finish. Now I'm gonna go install this tomorrow morning after it cures out for a full 24 hours. I wanna thank everybody for joining me in the shop. I hope you guys really like this project, and I'm gonna include some pictures at the end of the video so you can see what it looks like up against the wall with the pilasters in place. All right, guys, so definitely hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Once again, thanks for joining me.